This is a significant change. This is obviously a very bold and aggressive change.
The change would strip collective bargaining rights from everyone from snowplow drivers to prison guards, all except for their wages, in order to get some $30 million in savings this year and avoid 1,500 layoffs.
I, for one, don't want to see anybody laid off in the state of Wisconsin. I think the last thing we need are any more people on unemployment. I think to that extent, these modest changes are reasonable.
Walker says bargaining for savings takes up to 15 months and that he isn't willing to do it anymore.
We are broke in this state. We've been broke for years. People have ignored that for years, and it's about time somebody stood up and told the truth. The truth is we don't have money to offer. We don't have finances to offer. This is what we have to offer. And if you're going to negotiate, you got to have something to offer. We don't have some, so we're laying it out on the table.
That is shocking to state union leaders who aren't sure how their members will react.
Wisconsin is in crisis, but this is basically taking a sledgehammer to a problem that really reasonable people could have solved and not destroyed almost a century of good labor relations and things that people fought for.
If there are strikes or slowdowns, Walker says he's prepared the National Guard to step in, which is stunning to state Democrats.
This isn't just about having government overtake and tell workers what they can collectively do, but this is a radical and dangerous notion, no more explained by the governor's actions, to have to call the National Guard.
The governor says he doesn't expect workers to walk off the job, but that no one should have been surprised by these actions.
I identify the problem, I tell you what I think the solution is, and then I do it. That's exactly what I'm doing.
This is really a stunning and unprecedented turn of events here. Senate Democrats left the city, we are told earlier today. You can see there are thousands here who have been hearing this news as it has been spreading across the Capitol. But just about 15 minutes ago, the Senate came into session. Senate President Mike Ellis called senators in, called the roll. There are only 17 members present. That means all the Democrats and 2 Republicans are missing today. They need a quorum of 20 to vote. So the Senate President has put out what is called a call of the House, where the Sergeant at Arms and the State Patrol will now go out and try to find enough members to get to the Capitol so that this vote can happen. They have no idea how long that could take. The Senate President just said it could be anywhere from 5 hours to a full day. They have no idea, but we are told that senators are not in the city. We did talk to one Democrat before he left the building earlier this morning, as well as the Senate Majority Leader right after they took this call of the House. Here's what they had to say.
They're operating under a rule they believe says that it takes 20 senators present to pass a bill. And of course, there are only 19 Republicans.
I mean, I don't know what the logic is in just saying, no, we're not going to show up and vote. I really don't. That's not democracy. That's not what this building is about. That's not what this chamber is about.
Wisconsin's budget battle takes center stage tomorrow at the Capitol. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sarah Carlson.
And I'm Andy Choi in for Eric Cronkite. Tonight, many union members are speculating a political tit-for-tat has already taken place.
Now, not all state worker unions are impacted by Governor Walker's plans to eliminate union bargaining rights. Only News 3's Jessica Arp asks the question, is this political payback for campaign endorsements?
We know some unions were exempted, but who was left out and why? State police, firefighters, state troopers, and state patrol inspectors are protected from Walker's budget repair bill changes. Is it political payback? During his campaign for governor, Walker was endorsed by the Wisconsin State Troopers, as well as the Milwaukee Police and Firefighters Associations and the West Allis Professional Police. In all, 5 public employee unions endorsed him. 4 of the 5 are completely unharmed. Walker's response?
I think that's utterly ridiculous, because if I was, I'd only carve out those areas. The statewide police union, the statewide firefighter union endorsed my opponent. If I was rewarding political allies, it would be ridiculous to exempt them if that was the reason.
It's true that the statewide unions did endorse Walker's opponent, Democrat Tom Barrett. Almost all police and firefighters are exempted under the proposal, not just those in Milwaukee. Even though they are unharmed, though, some are opposing the bill, calling it union busting. You should also know there are some police who would lose union rights, including Capitol and UW police. Walker says their work can be covered in the event of a slowdown, while local protection can't. Overall, Walker says there is a different expectation.
Why should it be any different for police, fire, state inspectors? Why should union rights be any different for any of them?
Currently, we've had a long-standing tradition when it comes to fire and police service in the state of Wisconsin. The statutes are very different when it comes to a whole series of rights and responsibilities.
According to the Wisconsin Employment Relations Commission, there is no functional difference in labor law compared to other municipal employees, except that police and fire got the right to interest arbitration sooner than other unions did to help avoid strikes. And they do have slightly better benefits because of a dangerous work environment. We mentioned before that 4 of the 5 unions that endorsed Walker are exempted. One isn't, at least not completely. The International Union of Operating Engineers Local 139 is based in Pewaukee. A spokesman says most of their 9,000 members are private sector employees, but some of them do work for counties and townships, although he couldn't give us an exact number. I'm Jessica Arp with this News 3 Reality Check. Well, we want to first update you on what's going on inside the Capitol at this hour. There are still thousands of people who have come into this building. You can take a look at the Capitol Rotunda at this hour and some of the bridges here. Still thousands of people, a few less than maybe we saw at 9 o'clock, whether they're leaving because they're concerned about the building being closed or whether it's just getting late and some of them are going home. We don't know. There have been numerous announcements here that there is no Senate, Assembly, or public hearing going on right now, so anyone in this building is now in violation of a court order. But all of them came here, thousands of them came here in reaction to an incredibly unprecedented vote.
Okay, we'll call the conference committee to order.
With just 2 hours notice, Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald convened a conference committee to strip fiscal items out of the budget repair bill, to pass collective bargaining and other policy changes without Senate Democrats, to the dismay of one Democratic representative who was there for the vote.
Representative Barca. Clerk, call the roll.
No, listen, it says, if there's any doubt as to whether good cause exists, the governmental body should provide 24 hours notice. This is clearly a violation of the open meetings law. Now look, you've been shutting people down. It is improper moving forward while this is a violation of the open meetings law.
Then the Senate went quickly to the floor.
There are 18 ayes, 1 no. The conference report is adopted.
And passed the bill 18-1. Republican Senator Dale Schultz of Richland Center voting no and speaking only to News 3 afterward.
The Assembly is going to have to vote on this tomorrow, and we'll have to see what happens there. And second of all, I don't think this issue is going to go away. The people who have come down to the Capitol here are very passionate, and I think it's not likely that the 100,000 people who were here, a few days ago are suddenly going to forget this issue.
Republicans left the building under heavy police presence as protesters began to flood the Capitol. And the Assembly is preparing for a vote in their house.
There are no rules around this place anymore. It's a kangaroo legislature. We're just running things in any possible way.
Now, Senate Majority Leader Scott Fitzgerald said in a statement tonight that the Senate passed the bill because, quote, the people elected us to do a job, and just because the Senate Democrats won't do theirs doesn't mean we won't do ours. Fitzgerald says 3 legislative agencies have said that every item in this bill follows, quote, the letter of the law.
And Jess, Democrats, we had Representative Barca in the newsroom tonight. He was doing a live shot on MSNBC. They believe this is a violation of the state's open meetings law.
They truly do, and they have been crying foul on that issue all night. The state statute requires 24-hour notice before any meeting or 2-hour notice if, quote, good cause is given. There was just less than 2 hours notice given of this conference committee vote, so expect some legal challenges on this front. A month after announcing a budget repair bill, Governor Scott Walker signed a modified version of it into law.
This is done because these are tough times. And we have a tight budget and a tough economy. And for us, this is one more tool for us, one more reform that allows us to protect middle-class jobs and ultimately to protect middle-class taxpayers.
This is after the legislature took controversial measures to strip most financial items from the bill in order to pass it without missing Senate Democrats.
You spent the early part of this week in news conferences, releasing emails, trying to say and show that you were trying to compromise with Democrats here, but the ultimate action that was taken essentially went around them. How can you say to the people that you truly made an effort to compromise when this is what happened in the end?
Well, in the end, our reason for trying to reach out was to bring them home, because what I heard from people was not back off, it was get it done.
I'm 33 years old, I'm an entrepreneur, single dad, I care about people.
You don't know Michael Brown, but there's a good chance you've seen his work.
I knew there was an opportunity I had to collect data.
In the back corner of an Appleton coffee shop, Brown says the echoes from Madison's marble walls were calling him to action, prompting him to turn the website for his failed independent campaign for assembly from 2010 into United Wisconsin.
It started with UnitedWisconsin.com, and then it grew onto Facebook. And within a month, we had 160,000 pledges.
That number has grown to now more than 200,000 names, a statewide board of directors, a political action committee, and an influence that means United Wisconsin is now the driving force on a Walker recall.
We told all of our partners, anyone who wants to help with the recall effort should. Partisanship aside, this is a one-issue deal for United Wisconsin right now, and is recalling Scott Walker.
We knew that one of these groups would be formed for the purposes of kind of putting a cover to the state Democratic Party's efforts, and that's what United Wisconsin is.
The state Republican Party charges its Democratic counterparts are too involved in United Wisconsin's efforts to call the group independent. In fact, News 3 finds the group's executive director worked for the party. 3 other paid staffers had worked for left-leaning groups or volunteered on Democratic campaigns. Many of United Wisconsin's fundraising appeals come directly from the party chair, and office contacts around the state all have Democratic Party email addresses.
So for them to claim some kind of independence is stretching the truth. And frankly, at some point, if it looks like a duck, it walks like a duck, and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
United Wisconsin is an independent organization that is it's a nonpartisan organization.
Recently hired executive director Megan Mahaffey counters the Republican sentiment, saying she and others are only providing infrastructure for the thousands of volunteers working on the recall. Total signatures turned in for the governor, lieutenant governor, and Senate total nearly 2 million. The GAB says they have no idea how long the verification process will take, but it will be long and historic. An emblazoned U-Haul truck may never have been so anticipated. Its cargo, 1 million names, addresses, and signatures.
We called recall!
Collected in a 60-day effort organizers call unprecedented.
What we have accomplished is incredible. This is one of the greatest exercises of democracy in American history.
A huge night for Governor Scott Walker, as he is the first governor in U.S. history to survive a recall election and the first governor in Wisconsin history to be elected twice in the same term.
Tonight we tell Wisconsin, we tell our country, and we tell people all across the globe that voters really do want leaders who stand up and make the tough decisions.
Now, the other sort of upshot of tonight is, how does this reflect in November? How does this affect the presidential race going into November? Hearing from folks with the Republican National Committee that starting tomorrow, all of the offices that were Scott Walker offices today become Mitt Romney offices tomorrow. They're going to try to get a big operation on the ground. They feel like this is an opening for Mitt Romney to do well in November. It has been a cold and blustery day of mixed political fortunes in Iowa, where it is clear as the winds of change blow, voters are still undecided.
I'm just calling with a very quick story about the caucus tonight. Are you planning on attending?
The choice was just as clear for La Crosse's James Smith.
And which candidate for president do you support?
Who spent nearly all day on the phone making hundreds of calls with volunteers for Mitt Romney.
In Wisconsin, like, nobody even is talking about the presidential election because we got the recall going on. So it's like pretty exciting to get the presidential and then the recall up there.
Do you believe that's what will happen if you win on Tuesday, that you will become the presumptive nominee? And if so, do you think other candidates in the race should drop out if you win on Tuesday?
You know, I hope to win on Tuesday, and believe that if I win on Tuesday and also win in Maryland and the District of Columbia, if I were to win all three of those, it'd be a pretty compelling point. And I think people across the country may come together and say, okay, we got a nominee, let's back him. Now, other people may have a different point of view, and they have every right to continue to go on as long as they'd like. But I'm gonna focus more and more effort on making sure that we're prepared to take on Barack Obama in the fall.
Join me in welcoming the next President of the United States, Paul Ryan.
After a minor slip-up in title, Janesville Congressman Paul Ryan took the reins as the presumptive vice presidential nominee.
You had long told us, even the last time we talked to you back in April, weren't interested in the nation's highest office. What did Governor Romney say to change your mind?
Well, back last August when we looked at whether I should run for president or not, I didn't like the idea of a year-and-a-half-long campaign. And I thought Mitt Romney was offering good leadership. When Mitt Romney asked me to join the ticket, he basically said, you share my values and you have the kind of experience that complements my experiences to fix this country's problems. I've been a reformer in Congress a long time. You know my record. And so when he basically said that to me, I said, yeah, okay, let's get this done.
What did you tell your kids about it?
You know, I told my kids what it would be like, and the thing that is exciting for us, in a way, is I'll be under the same roof with my family 7 days a week. I've been gone from my family 4 days a week ever since my children were born. And so there's the upside. The downside is Janesville, but we're never going to leave our home truly here in Janesville. And so, you know, the values I learned here growing up here, we're in my high school right here in Janesville, those values of fix problems, be honest, use principles that were successful and built this country to the problems of the day to solve our nation's problems. And so we really believe that it's not too late to get this country on the right track, that it's not too late to get people back to work, to get higher take-home pay, and to leave our kids a better future, which if we stay with the current plan that President Obama has given us, it's a country in debt, further in doubt, more joblessness, higher poverty rates. If we stick with this plan, I really worry we're never going to give the kind of future we need to give to our kids that our parents gave to us, let alone getting people back to work or out of work today.
You talk a lot about Janesville and the speeches that you've been giving since you've been on the trail. What can you name specifically that in your time in Congress you've done to try to help your hometown?
Oh, gosh, you name it. First of all, I want to get this debt under control because the debt is a huge threat to our economy. Most jobs in Janesville are small business jobs, just like the rest of America. I think we need to give our small businesses breathing room to grow and survive. We need to have regulatory reform so they don't have all these unintended costs put upon them. We shouldn't keep raising tax rates on successful small businesses, which will make it harder for them to create jobs. You know, the Canadians just lowered their tax rate on all businesses to 15% in January. President Obama is promising that in January, the top tax rate on successful small businesses, where most people get their jobs here in Janesville, will go above 40%. That doesn't create jobs. So what I've been trying to do is make sure that the job creators in our communities, those successful small businesses, the people who have ideas, who want to work hard to build a business and create opportunity for people, that they have the ability to flourish and succeed in this global economy. And they've been doing anything but under the Obama economy. So the things I've done in Congress, create jobs, help small businesses, fix the problems that we have right now with our debt and our deficit before they get out of our control, that's the kind of skill, that's the kind of leadership and experience that Mitt Romney asked me to apply to his ticket so we can solve this country's problems before they get out of our control.
When you talk about those small businesses and the importance of startups, there's an incubator on the south side of Janesville that's now in place that started with $1.2 million in stimulus funds. And you've been a vocal opponent of the stimulus. Especially with that existing, how do you tell the people in Janesville that that wasn't money well spent?
I don't think borrowing and spending does not work to create jobs. You can find where if you put some money here or there, that it will make a difference. But look at the broader economy. Unemployment has been above 8% for 42 months. The president said if you pass the stimulus, unemployment will never hit 8%. We have 23 million people who are out of work today. The stimulus didn't fix that. We have nearly 1 in 6 Americans in poverty today. It's the highest rate in a generation. The stimulus didn't fix that.
But is the stimulus not helping with that incubator to create startups that would put people to work here?
Are we putting the right kind of economic policies in place to get people back to work, to get higher take-home pay? And the answer is no. President Obama has put policies in place that are making it difficult for us to create jobs, to get higher take-home pay, to get people back to work. And so we shouldn't be thinking about an earmark here or a spending bill there. We should be thinking about, do we have the right economic policies in place that get the economy growth, that get opportunity, that get people going back to work? And the answer is no.
And Jessica Arp is live with us now from Tampa. Good evening, Jess. When you sat down with Ryan, does it seem like the small-town congressman is fazed by the national limelight?
Honestly, it really doesn't. He seems incredibly comfortable in his surroundings. He seems incredibly comfortable on the stump. When we sat down and talked, you could tell that it was nice to see a familiar face. I have spoken to him before, and so had some of the Milwaukee reporters who were speaking to him that day. But it was also nice to be back in his old high school, back in his hometown. He talked about how nice it was to be able to have dinner with his family 2 nights in a row. It is clear that he has had some practice with his budget plans over the years. He has had some practice talking about his policies, defending them, and he also is sticking a lot to these talking points that we hear in his stump speeches, but it's clearly not something that he seems overwhelmed by. He seems really quite comfortable.
15 miles west of Lake Michigan sits quiet, quaint St. Nazianz, Wisconsin.
Our company is 113 years old. We're the biggest employee here. There are only about 700 or 800 people. We employ almost 270.
Here you'll find the strength of our state. Building the biggest farm implement brand you've never heard of.
We compete against Case IH and John Deere, which are very strong brands here. They're lesser so in other parts of the world. So our independent Miller brand has a better shot of selling to a farmer in Russia than it does to a farmer in Iowa. You got a front-mounted cap for easy vision.
John Miller now sells more than 50% of his crop sprayers around the world. After a slowdown leading to layoffs in 2009 and 10, Miller is expanding again. 70 new faces have come to work in the last 2 years. It's not lost on Miller that the outcome of the approaching election could shape his future.
For me to grow as a company, I need to make strategic investments in both educating our people and capital expansion here. The government needs to do the same thing. So they need to make investments in infrastructure so that I can bring my products to market. And they also need to make investments in our education.
But Miller can also see the hardship that continues during his building boom.
Our gains have been somebody else's loss. We're hiring a lot of people lately that have been laid off from other jobs in the local area that are hurting.
It's a challenge working on this, but it's I'll get used to it.
New buttons and new tools mean a new path for Jeff Dietrich.
34 years at Thermo Fisher, and it's too bad.
After spending most of his life at the healthcare manufacturer, Dietrich says he never knew management was sharpening the axe.
I thought when I started there when I was 18 years old, I thought I'd be retiring from there. Nobody expects it. You hear of all these plants closing, and you don't think it's going to happen to you, and it does. It's sad. A lot of people lost their jobs.
The same story playing out across Wisconsin, just 2 hours northwest in Stevens Point.
It was a kick in the teeth. They never asked the union for any type of concessions to try to keep it here. The state and the city offered them millions in incentives to stay, and they weren't interested. They already had their mind made up.
Jorn's Healthcare, which makes nursing home beds and furniture, languishes on the west side of town. It's where George Peretz has shown up for work since 1985 until next week. More than 150 jobs at the plant are headed south of the border, a cold reality that's left Peretz with a message for the presidential candidates.
Instead of worrying about retraining us after we lose our jobs, we need to figure out how we're going to keep our jobs. And the bottom line is be American, buy American, because the job that you save may be your own.
All right, take some deep breaths for me.
In southwest Wisconsin, a Dodgeville doctor's office is Arnold Boone's refuge, having gone cold turkey both from smoking and health care.
I mean, you've got some diminished breath sounds, which can be consistent with a little bit of emphysema.
The Chicago transplant landed in Montfort with no job, fortunate to find the community's free clinic.
People that's unemployed and people that are not have any health insurance, there's no other place to go.
We're open 2 nights a week. We're on pace to have the busiest year that we've ever had. Are you having any residual pain from when the stitches were coming out?
Dr. Aaron Dunn opened the doors here in 2006 and has only seen the need grow.
The access is still poor. The services we can offer are still limited, and we are a stopgap. We are not a long-term solution. So that's what we're looking for, is some kind of long-term fix so that people don't have to come here anymore.
Just minutes down the road in rural Iowa County.
We bought it in 2005. It's our 7th year on the farm.
The economy hasn't been kind to Laura Daniels. Costs of crops and feed skyrocketed in 2008. Milk prices tanked in 2009. And just when the industry seemed headed for a turnaround, the 2012 drought wiped out their corn crop. Their herd of Jersey cows have weathered the weather so far, but that doesn't mean there's not more to do.
Stepping back and thinking about agriculture as a whole, we need to pass a farm bill. And this is really important to us. And when it comes to politics, a lot of times politics that directly affect agriculture, you're not going to see it in the debate, and you're really not going to see a lot of national public discussion about it.
A political priority for Daniels is crop insurance, a safety net when Mother Nature has other plans.
Ag policy has to be all about balance, and that farmers are entrepreneurial by spirit, and we want to succeed on our own. But we also understand that there is a larger need for us to succeed beyond ourselves and our family. That feeding people is a kind of a big deal, right?
Head 2.5 hours east to the state's largest city, and you'll find a young woman who deeply understands the need to succeed.
My mom being a single mother with 4 children, there's no way she could provide for me to, go to college out of pocket. Just looking up something in the catalog here.
Tammy Robinson's job at UW-Milwaukee's main library isn't just for spending money.
I can help you down here.
The junior got a financial wake-up call from the government before school started this year. A notice she was ineligible for the Pell Grants that had been putting her through school. Why? A 25-cent an hour raise at her previous bank teller job.
I wouldn't have taken it. It wasn't worth it. The money I was making before I got the raise was good enough to take care of home and then still be able to get that help to pay for school.
Robinson knows how much is at stake as the presidential candidates look at college costs.
I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of people dropped out.
But for her, the loss of her grant is about more than just money.
Those people that do have parents they can go to, they don't understand. But people like me do.
Her unique situation, just one take on the challenges the people of Wisconsin face.
Hopefully next year I'll be able to get a little something to help me out.
It's how we respond to that adversity that will drive our decision-making this November.
It's real hard to walk away from a perfectly good job. Now you don't have a choice, so you're kind of like that small bird that gets kicked out of the nest. You got to go and learn how to fly all over again.
A lot of times you think you take for granted what you have, what you had, and now you start over, and hopefully with the election and I hope everything turns out okay, whoever is president.
Hope for what lies ahead as swing state Wisconsin chooses a path not only for our future, but for our country's. For Campaign 2012, I'm Jessica Arp. In a first day back on the campaign trail after Superstorm Sandy, Paul Ryan made sure voters here knew he hadn't forgotten about victims of the storm. Air Force One touchdown here in Green Bay, the first of 3 stops expected in the next 5 days before the election. In a state some believe the election could come down to, Mitt Romney made his closing arguments to voters. Those at the rally today asking the 18,000 plus in this crowd to bring 5 friends with them to the polls, hoping that it turns this rally into a nearly 100,000 voter turnout.
Ebbs and flows here of political life in Wisconsin are unbelievable, are they not?
you simply cannot predict what's going to happen in Wisconsin, and that's what makes it so interesting to cover. That's what makes having this job so great, is that you sort of don't know what's going to happen next. Now, obviously, it's been kind of an exhausting year of turnarounds, of politics, of political developments in this state, but I think it's sort of a statement to the independence of the people of the state of Wisconsin, that oftentimes they don't vote issues, they vote people, they vote, or that they do vote issues, and they vote feelings on people. They're not necessarily voters that stick strictly to one party or the other.